I've survived more than 3,000 days in Minecraft Hardcore, and I've built some pretty awesome things. However, it has been a long time since my first 1,000 day movie, so I decided to share the next part of my journey, showing you how I made it to 2,000 days all in one video. I've also got the 3,000 day video coming up in the next few days, plus I'm working on the most insane castle that I've ever built, and it's all in Minecraft Hardcore. So stay tuned for that soon. But until then, enjoy the video and maybe consider subscribing. So this is my hardcore world, the world that I know and love. And this is also my hardcore world. Can you spot the difference? Here, take another look. Take one, take two. Yep, you guessed it. This build is up here all alone with nothing but a couple of happy little trees. And we certainly can't have that in this world. So today I'm going to be changing that by building an entire industrial coal mining plant full of warehouses, factories, a coal mine, an export dock, and so much more, all in hardcore Minecraft. So if you haven't done so already, then why not subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future videos. It's free and you can always unsubscribe later on if you wish. So today's episode is going to have a lot of building, and I think the perfect spot for it is just behind the factory here, just along by the river, because there's plenty of room for building. To make this work, I'm going to have to do a lot of terraforming. That means removing all of these trees and getting rid of all the stone between the two islands so the boats can pass through, all while trying to clean up the terrain along the way. So that means this is going to be one crazy transformation, so stick around and follow the journey because this is going to be epic. So let's get to work. Well, that only took me like forever, but at least it's looking a bit more like something now. Not sure what, but something at least. Now there's still a long way to go, but I think for now I'm done with the landscaping. Next up, I need a shovel without silk touch. Luckily, I still have the one I found when I went end raiding. But first, I need a mending book. Let's grab one from Rick. And who's got efficiency 4? Haha, there we go. Now we can upgrade to efficiency 5. Oh yeah, that should speed things up. All I need now is some XP. So and with that out of the way, I should probably check my rocket supplies, as it's been a while since I topped them up. Yep, I thought as much, only a stack and a half left. Okay, let's just fill this shulker with as many as we can hold. That should probably keep me going for a day or so. Now, there is a lot of work to do, so I think it's time I start placing some blocks. Let's start by building up some pillars and connect them across the top, adding some chisel stone bricks for detail. For the back walls, I'm going to use some cobblestone, but I'll come back later and do some texturing. Maybe a few upside down stairs for detail, and some lanterns to brighten up the area. And I think this would be a good spot for a stairway. I spent a few hours working on the walls and platforms, then finished up the small edge by the water by creating a little wall using upside down stairs. In front of the wall, I added some platforms for a docking area, which would be perfect for some trading boats. Okay, that's shaping up nicely now, and I have a bit of an idea how I want this to look, so it's probably a good idea to start working on the buildings. But first, I should probably check my supplies. Where's all my bricks? Well, that's not good. How much clay do I have? I guess that should be enough to get started. Funny, I thought there was going to be a lot more. Oh well. Let's shovel it into balls and, yeah, that sounded so wrong. smelting clay inside these is so slow. So I have a better idea. Time to work smarter and build a furnace super smelter. Let's grab some materials. And this looks like a good spot. Let's connect a row of hoppers. And 20 furnaces should be plenty, right? Maybe a few more hoppers. There's always something I forget. Let's grab some gold. How do you craft rails again? Aha, there we go. Probably a good idea to remember to give them power. Now, for fuel, I was thinking about using a carpet duper to save on resources. I don't know. Maybe I'll connect a bamboo farm for fuel later. Okay, let's test it out. That's looking good. Everything seems to be working. So let's throw these in there and see what happens. Wow, that was quick. Well, that will save some time at least. While I'm waiting, I guess I should get to work on gathering some materials. I think the only block I need now is some bone blocks. And all done. And we have 72 levels. Nice. Most of that was from mining quartz, but hey, levels are levels, right? And with that being said, I think it's time we get some building done. Okay, that is looking pretty awesome. I still need to come back and do the detailing, but I'll come back to that at the end. There's still some platforms and another building to add, plus I need to connect the pulleys at the bottom to some kind of cog or wheel. But before I do anything else, I really should repair my bow. I mean, it's getting pretty worn down and those creepers are determined to catch me off guard. So let's grab a bow from the Skelly farm, and that should do the trick. Now I can take these guys down without worrying about it breaking on me. Next up, I should probably work on the house that holds the pulleys and get the rest of those platforms and walkways in place. So back to work it is. Man, these guys drive me crazy. Let's creep up on him while he's not looking. Have that, you stupid wandering trader. Let's just pick up the evidence. Now, this building really does look awesome, but it has used way more resources than I expected. So it looks like I'm gonna need a lot more bricks, maybe even granite and blackstone. So it's time to get back to the grind and do a bit more gathering. Okay, I have tons of clay now and it's all smelting in the super smelter, and I think I should have enough to craft plenty of bricks to fill a few chests. But I still need to mine it into clay balls, so this might take a while. Okay, so next up I need some granite and blackstone. And this time I'm going to gather plenty so that I don't run out for sure. Next up, let's add a few details. First, we're definitely going to need some kind of rail design. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Next, we should build some carriages on this side. Maybe it will look like they're being loaded with coal. That kind of looks like some wheels, right? Yeah, I think it works. Maybe some blackstone for the base. And let's add some trapdoors for the sides. You know, blackstone actually looks a lot like coal, so I think I'm going to use it inside the carriages. Yeah, that looks pretty awesome. I like it. Let's build a few more carriages then. Now there's a few of them that actually looks pretty sick. We do need some kind of train bumpers at the end here though. And that should do the trick. I'll come back and add a few more details a bit later on. But for now, let's work on the warehouse that will hold the carriages. Oh yeah, that's really starting to shape up now. I must admit, I'm really loving this style. Never really built anything in this style before, so it's been a pretty fun project. Okay, let's start working on detailing and finishing up the area before we start building down there. First, let's move this out of the way. And now we can change the floor for something a bit more suitable. Oh yeah, that looks great. What a difference it makes. Now I want to make a tunnel just here for the trains to go through. It's just a fake one for now, but it does the job. Although, I think it needs something to darken the back, so... And now we can make some black concrete. Oh yeah, that works much better. Now, maybe a little cliff edge to tidy up this corner. Yeah, that's perfect. I think I want to separate this area with a wall. And maybe a little storage shed of some sort would work well here. Yeah, that's good. It's simple, but it does the job. I think I'll add a pile of logs here. And maybe some piles of coal here. Now it just needs a little greenery, I think. There's still something missing. It's looking a little bit empty around the edges, so let's add some trees. Oh yeah, that definitely fills in the gap. And now that looks pretty awesome actually. But there's still something else missing. And I know just the thing. Let's go ahead and place these. Haha, now it is perfect. I think this spot would actually be perfect for a crane, so let's build one. Okay, I tried to make a sort of steam crane and I think I like it. It looks pretty good and definitely fits with the area, so yeah, we'll keep it. I think this side is actually looking really cool now, so I think it's probably time that we move over to the other side and start working on those factories. First I need to texture up all the walkways, so this might take a while. I think a little bit of texture on the dock platforms would actually look pretty good too. And maybe a few fences. Oh yeah, what a difference that makes. Next up, let's quickly build a small building just here. Let's frame it out first with some mushroom stems. Then I'll add some smooth quartz and bone blocks for texture. For the roof, let's just keep it simple with some spruce stairs. And I'll add a couple of chimneys. And finish off the windows. Yeah, that looks good. Next, I think I want to move on to the factory building just over here. I'm pretty sure a couple of these chunks around here are slime chunks, so this will likely house a slime farm a bit later on. So let's get that building in next. And to finish it off, let's make a nice logo. Now we have our jelly factory. I actually love the way that this one looks. It still needs a bit of decoration, but it fits into the area perfectly. Plus, it has this cool little walkway that goes underneath it. Now, it's really coming together, but these walls here are driving me crazy. So, no, something don't look right here. Aha, there we go. Now it's perfect. I'm just falling. So the walls are looking much better now, but it does need some small details, which I'll come back and add a little bit later. First, I have 2 more buildings I need to finish. Okay, this area is looking amazing, but I'm not done yet. If you guys know me, then you know that nothing is complete without some greenery and decorations. So it's time to bring even more life to this place. This place has shaped up amazing and I am so happy with how it's looking now. Here's a quick little overview of the progress that this area has actually gone through, and as you can see, it looks completely different now. It did take me nearly 500 days to finish it, but the end result was totally worth it. Now, all these houses and buildings will lead to automatic farms at some point, and there's still a huge mine I need to build. But what do you guys want to see me build next? Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. I recently found out that there are over 30 animals in Minecraft. The problem is most of them are thousands of blocks away or hiding in the depths of the ocean, so they never get seen. But today I'm going to change that by building the ultimate zoo, complete with custom enclosures and housing every animal, all in Minecraft Hardcore. Now, to be honest, this is by far my biggest project I've ever done in this world. It's taken me more than 5 weeks to complete and more than 700 days in Minecraft, so please don't judge me. Maybe subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up instead. So before I get started, we need to find the perfect spot, like this island right opposite my base and industrial area that we built in last episode. I mean, it's close enough to base and we've got plenty of room for building. Let's go over the plan. First, I guess I need to clear this forest, and then I'm going to connect a bridge to the island, which will be the only access point to the zoo. I then want to build a nice big entrance to section off the island and then give it a nice big unique name, you know, something like zoo, because no one else is using that, right? Once that's all in place, I'll start building the enclosures for all the animals, making sure to leave plenty of space for a pathway. Each enclosure will of course be nicely decorated and completely custom and unique to the animal inside it. However, for all the underwater animals, including the turtles, frogs and axolotls, I want to build a nice aquarium with a huge octopus, and maybe the mouth could be the entrance. And of course there will be plenty of decorations along the way. Man, that is a lot of trees. So, let's get to work. With the area cleared, I guess the best place to start is the bridge. I decided to go with a brick walkway, which I think will extend throughout the zoo. I also mixed in some granite for some variation, and for the walls I added some pillars which extended down underneath the bridge to make a bit of an archway. At this point the bridge was looking very grey, so I added in some polished granite for a little bit of colour. And then finally I finished up with some details and added in some iron bars for railings. Okay, that's not bad. I'm not 100% sure on the design just yet, but I think it works. I'll see how it looks once we get the entrance all in place, but at least we have an access point to the island now. With the bridge all in place, I decided to start planning out the layout for the zoo. This step usually is time consuming, but it always makes the build process much easier in the long run. I started by planning out the entrance and then moved on to organising the layout for the enclosures, making sure that I kept space for a pathway through the middle so that I could have animals on both sides. At the same time, I was also trying to keep in mind which animals would go inside each enclosure. This allowed me to make them a good size for each animal. One of the great things about planning is that it always helps you come up with new ideas and inspiration. One of those ideas for me was adding a raised area for some more enclosures in the aquarium. I felt this would help add more scale to the zoo and make the area stand out when looking at it from a distance. Okay, that really was a huge job, but at least most of the area is all planned out now. I still need to plan out a few more enclosures to go somewhere up here, but first I need some name tags for all the mobs. Ah, seriously Rick? Only 12 name tags at a time? I thought you was an expert. Well, I guess I might as well repair my tools while I wait for him to restock. So... And before I forget, let's drink some milk. I really do not want to be setting off any raids right now. And after several trades, I'm up to 57 name tags, which should be enough to keep us going for a while. And I'm getting pretty low on rockets again, so I think it's about time we restock. Now, with over 30 enclosures to build, I'm gonna need stacks and stacks of sand for glass. That certainly won't do. What about red sand? That's probably still not going to be enough. I didn't even check my actual glass supply. Man, I'm so dumb sometimes. Okay, along with all the sand, that might just about do it. Let's throw that in there and switch on the ovens. Now, I think I want the glass to be stained black, so... Wow, that actually stained more glass than I expected. Although I have no idea if it's enough, but it will do for now. Luckily, I have tons and tons of raw copper, but smelting it, that's gonna take a while. While I was waiting, I spent some time gathering a bunch of materials, including jungle logs, leaves, bamboo, mud, mangrove logs, packed ice, snow blocks, and I came across a mushroom island, so I gathered some mushrooms and some mycelium. Not that there was much else on offer to gather. Seriously, I feel like I've been waiting forever, and so far, only 7 blocks have oxidized. 7. Like, how long does this stuff take? You know what, I guess I should just get a start with building. Now that is looking pretty awesome, I like it a lot. But now the inside is looking rather empty. So next up, let's get to work on those pens, which means I'm going to need some leads. Let's grab some leather, that should be more than enough. Ah man, I am such a noob. Of course you don't need leather for leads, you need string and slime balls. Let's just pretend I never touched this, like it never happened. Well, I'm certainly not going to run out of string anytime soon. And only 5 slime balls. Wait a minute, hold up. I think I might have. Yes, slime blocks. Almost forgot. Just a few should do the trick. Let's craft some leads. And now I need to find some animals. Gathering the chickens, sheep and pigs was pretty easy. I mean, there's plenty of them everywhere. But I also found some trader llamas. Seriously, these guys were so rude, they just wouldn't stop spitting at me. And they even killed my sheep. Luckily, I had no problems finding more. Now, with a bunch of animals, I got straight to work on the enclosures. Starting with a chicken pen, I added in some walls and then built a simple little coop to shelter them from the rain. I tried to keep the design pretty simple but decorative at the same time. I mean, you guys know how much I love my decorations. Next up was the pig pen, and I wanted this one to look a little bit messy, so I switched the grass for some mud and podzol. Then I built a small custom tree with a small shelter to the side, and then finished it off with some small details and a little water trough. The sheep pen was a little bit bigger, so I made it a bit more compact by building a little barn using mangrove wood for the roof. I added a small wheat field to the side and then a few hay bales for some details. I know it's only 3 pens, but I kinda love the way this one is shaping up. There's plenty of colour and the overall design just feels very fitting with the area. And I'm getting a little low on food, so let's quickly grab some golden carrots. And next up, I think I'm gonna go for the wolf enclosure. I started this enclosure by texturing the ground and added in a small pond for the wolves to drink from. I then built them a small cave for shelter. I didn't want to build it too big as the wolves would probably climb it and then escape the pen, and we certainly didn't want that. I also added in some custom trees and then decorated the pen with some leaves, dripstone, logs, and even some bamboo, which added a great bit of colour to the build. Okay, that one's looking pretty cool, and gotta be honest, I really love the addition of the bamboo. It just adds a little sparkle of colour. All it needs now is some wolves, and then the pen is complete. I spent about an hour trying to track down the wolves and getting them back to the enclosure, so it took me a bit longer than I expected. I also saw a wolf do this animation for the first time. Is that a new thing? Because I've never seen that before. That's 4 wolves now, so let's put a name tag on them and this pen's complete. Now this place is looking pretty cool, but there is something that I have to do. Let's grab this, make some red dye, turn this into white dye. Now we can craft pink dye and we can go boom! And we have a pink sheep. Sorry, but it had to be done. Although, kinda makes me want to do it in every color now. Okay, maybe later, as right now I need some rabbits for the next enclosure. Hold up, like, where's the llamas gone? I didn't think name tagged animals could despawn. Well, that sucks. Heading out for a search for rabbits turned into the craziest journey ever. You see, finding the rabbits was not the problem. I mean, I found plenty. However, getting them home safely was almost impossible. After many hours, I finally come to the conclusion that the spruce and snow biomes were far too dangerous because the wolves and foxes would keep attacking them. I even brought some foxes back thinking my bunnies would be safe behind a fence. Yeah, I know, I'm stupid. So I let the foxes go, and finally, after an entire day, I finally got some back home from the meadow. And this time I had a few more than I expected. Wow, I can't believe I actually made it back with so many of them. Looks like we might have more bunnies than any other animal. This time though, I'm completely blocking them in to make sure they are safe. That should do. Now nothing can get them, not even me. Now with all the excitement out of the way, let's do a few more enclosures. I think these ones will be for the rabbits, donkeys and the mules, and maybe this one for the cows. So, let's get building. For the rabbit's pen, I started by making a simple little hut for some shelter, and then added a small little carrot field to the side. I used iron bars to wall off the back of the pen, and then added a small custom tree for some decoration. For the donkey and mules enclosure, I textured the grass and then added a small basic pond. I also built a small barn using mangrove wood again for the roof. I then finished off the build with some decorations and added a few small custom trees to bring some life to the enclosure. For the cow's pen, I started with a small barn, this time using oak and spruce for the roof. I textured the ground and then added a few leaves and little bushes. The pen was actually pretty big, so I added in a few custom trees to fill in some of the space. And overall, I think the zoo is really starting to shape up now. And now the pens are all in place, let's add the animals. I'm going to start with the bunnies as they were the hardest to get. And I'm not taking any chances so they can all go on leads. Oh my gosh, look, there are so many of them. But I must say it feels good to finally have them in place. Next up we have our cows, and these guys shouldn't give us any trouble. There we go. And for the next enclosure I'm going to need to find some donkeys and horses. Finding and taming more horses and donkeys was rather slow, but not really that hard. I even managed to breed a few into some mules, and I gotta say the babies are pretty cute. While gathering some of the horses, one of them did randomly disappear. A bit later on I managed to find him, but inside a tree. I mean, it was pretty funny. I have no idea how he got there. At this point I felt like I was on a roll, so I decided to try and hunt down the next animal, which was located in the jungle and fairly rare. Yes, I'm talking about the panda. And seriously, why can't we put these guys on leads? You see, it took me searching 5 jungles before I actually found some pandas, and that took me an entire day. I didn't want to risk the never, so I thought I would slowly try and head home, taking one panda at a time. Until this happened. Jeez, this is gonna take forever. Are you kidding me? Like, it just took me over an hour to get here and you just rolled into a cactus. Seriously, tell me that didn't happen? After realizing that the overworld would just take too long, I decided to make a nether portal and then make a tunnel all the way through the nether back to my home portal so that we could travel safely. Now it was quicker than I expected. I mean, it did take me like 3 to 4 hours, but it will be handy having closer access to the jungle now. Come on buddy, just through here. And let's quickly get you back in a boat. There we go. And now we just have about 1,000 blocks, maybe a little bit less to travel, but it certainly beats going through the overworld. Finally, we are back at base and so close now. Yes, we finally did it, and I'm sticking a name tag on you straight away so that you don't despawn. After the longest journey ever, I finally have both pandas and also a baby back at home now. And I seriously hope that none of the other mobs take as long as these guys, because that was a trek and a half. Okay, I really need a change of scene now and away from hunting the animals, so let's get to work on that panda enclosure. I started the panda enclosure by building some custom trees to make them feel right at home. Now I've always felt like the jungle gives off some Japanese vibes, so I built a torii gate and decorated the enclosure. I used mangrove wood and blackstone bricks as they really complement each other well and worked especially well with the Japanese theme. I added plenty of bamboo and then finished off the pen by texturing the walls. And now that the babies have all grown up, I have 4 pandas, 4 mules and 4 donkeys. So I guess next we should get them into their pens. Starting with the pandas, which we can easily trick with some bamboo. And of course now they're in there, I'll let them have some so that we can trigger love mode. There we go, 6 pandas should be plenty. Oh, and of course let's not forget to name tag the babies as well. Now we can move the donkeys and the mules, and thankfully, we can put these guys on leads, so that makes life much easier. Well, they look pretty happy in there, so I'd say that's another job well done. Now I guess I should probably repair my tools as they're not looking so good. That's looking much better, and now I think it's time that we worked on these pathways, as it's got to look a bit better than this grass. Wow, what a difference that makes. I mean, we could probably do with a little bit more texturing, but overall I think that looks great. And now the paths are in place, I think I want to start working on the Parrot's enclosure, which is going to use a bunch of copper, so hopefully enough of it has oxidized by now. But first, let's grab a ton of these. I'm also going to need plenty of cactus. And now we can make some cyan dye and craft a whole bunch of cyan glass. And that should be plenty. Now I have been gathering and placing a whole bunch of copper on and off for a while now, and it looks like we should be ready to get this enclosure all built. For this build I really wanted to change things up a little bit and make use of the oxidized copper. My goal was to build a kind of greenhouse style enclosure with a little bit of a tropical vibe. And the copper made a great change, which really made the build stand out amongst everything else, with the cyan glass really helping bring the whole build together. For the roof I went with a kind of dome shape with an apex at the front and back just to add a little bit of detail. And I must admit, this build used a lot more copper than I expected. As for the inside, I wanted to keep everything colourful and bright, so I used some moss for the grass and then added some jungle trees with plenty of flowers just to make it vibrant and give it that pop of colour. And look at that! Using the copper really breaks up the area from all of that wood, and the red colour from the brick floor just really makes everything, I don't know, just inviting. You know, I think this might just be my new favourite build. But we are still a long way from done, so I still have a lot more work to do. But next up, we need some parrots. Luckily, I have seeds for days, weeks, months, maybe even years, so this shouldn't be a problem. But unfortunately, we can't breed them, so looks like we're gonna have to try and find them. Oh, this guy's on the lookout. So where are all the parrots? Wait, was that? Aha, yes it was. You wanna be my friend, buddy? Come on, don't be greedy. And we have a new friend. Can I just pretend this guy's a parrot? I mean, he has wings and he likes seeds. Okay, maybe not. After searching for about an hour or two, things were going pretty good. I'd found 3 parrots and then this happened. I don't think so, buddy. No, you have got to be kidding me. Like, I have no words. Yes, it happened again. I guess I'm not so good at protecting animals in this game. It was back to the beginning, and this time it took a lot more seeds to make them my friend. Finally, after several hours again, I finally managed to get some back home safely. And I managed to convince them to sit nicely on top of the bird cages that I'd made earlier, which finally made the parrot enclosure complete. At this point, I was eager to get back to building, with the next 3 enclosures being for the mushroom cow, the foxes, and the ocelots. Starting with the mushroom enclosure, I switched out the grass for mycelium and decided to add a little pond. I didn't want to overwork this enclosure, so I kept it fairly simple, just added in a few custom mushrooms to match the mushroom island. I used some end rods and some mushroom blocks to make these mini mushrooms, which worked out as a great way to add a bit of light to the enclosure. Next up was the fox enclosure, which again I kept fairly simple. I used podzol and coarse dirt to create a bit of a muddy forest feel, and then built a small kind of burrow for the foxes to live in. I knew foxes could jump high, so I chose not to add any trees, but I added some bushes instead and then placed a few berry bushes in for some detail. Finally, I moved on to the ocelot enclosure, where I went for a bit of a jungle vibe. I added in some more jungle trees and a small pond, along with a small cliff for the ocelots to climb. Then I finished it off with lots of leaves and foliage. Now, this place is really starting to feel more like a zoo, and I just love all the colours. It just looks so vibrant and colourful. Now, before I do anything else, I need some rockets. So, let's grab some sugarcane. And I only have 2 stacks left, so... stocked again, but they won't last long. Now that I was stocked on rockets, I could return to the Mushroom Island, which was over 5,000 blocks away. Luckily, I managed to bring back some mushroom cows using a bow, which was surprisingly easy. Once they were in their enclosure, I headed off to find a tiger biome, where I found a couple of foxes that did give me a little bit of trouble, but I did manage to get them home safely. Once they were in their enclosure, I bred them to make a few more, as it was much easier than trying to gather some more. Finally, I headed back to the jungle for some ocelots, and these guys did not make it easy for me. I mean, somehow they kept getting off their leads, but after a lot longer than I cared to admit, I finally got a couple of them back home where I bred them, as that was way easier than finding more. Oh, look how cute this little guy is. Cute, but man, are you guys a pain in the butt to actually get home, so I'm glad that's all done now. Oh yeah, and I also found a new addition on my journey, so say hello to Percy the Parrot. Anyway, I still have a whole bunch of enclosures to build, and I will be needing a bunch more of the oxidized copper soon, so let's collect all of these. And I'll go ahead and place down another load. While they oxidize, let's work on the area up here, where I think I'm going to have the bees, the alleys, the cats, and maybe the polar bears in a cool little cave over there. So, no time to rest, let's do this. For the bees enclosure, I decided to continue with the spruce wood theme, but this time I made a kind of house style enclosure. I started by working in all of the framework and then added some trees inside. Now I must admit, I was building this at like 4 AM in the morning and I was a little sleep deprived, so I completely forgot about the main roof. So I placed down the bees nest and I was a bit confused about how they kept escaping. After a while, I finally realized my mistake and I managed to fix it, after chasing them down of course. Next up, I designed a fairly simple enclosure for the Allay. I wanted it to look a little magical, so I added some amethyst blocks and crystals, which really worked well. The cat enclosure was also fairly simple, following along with a similar design to the bee enclosure. Inside I added a little stairway to a little house and then some climbing poles and scratch pads for them to play on. Finally, I moved on to the bear enclosure, where I went for a kind of cold, snowy cave design. I filled in the walls with snow and ice, and I created a small pond so that the bears could have a swim. I then used some end rods to make some icicles for detail, which was a great way to add some light into the cave. And to finish off the enclosure, I added in a couple of custom trees and some bushes. Once that was all in place, I felt like the area still needed a little bit of detailing. So I built some custom trees, added some foliage and some flowers, and then finally finished off the center with a nice big water fountain, which really finished off all of the area. Oh my gosh, this place is just looking so cool now, and I'm not gonna lie, I think this is actually my favorite build that I have ever done. I mean, the enclosures up here fit so well with the landscape. But I must admit that the polar bear one is just my favorite. It just looks so cool. Although we are missing the animals. Except for the bees, of course, as they were in their hives. So I guess it's back to animal hunting. I started with the Allay as I knew there was a couple close to my base at the pillager outpost. Now it wasn't easy with so many pillagers around, but I managed to release them from their cage, but one of them did get away. So to be safe, I put the other on a lead and quickly got him home safely. I did take a trip back to see if I could find the other one, and luckily he hadn't gone too far. After getting him home safely, I found some amethyst shards and made a jukebox, which I used to duplicate the alleys. They sure do love their music. I then went ahead and gathered up some cats, which I found from the local villages. Once I had a few, I took them home and bred them up for a few more. I might come back a little bit later and see if I can actually get all variants, which I think would be pretty cool. The polar bears, on the other hand, were a little bit tougher, as the adults wanted to attack me. I managed to get them back while in a boat without taking too much damage. However, second time round was much easier, as I realized it was just better to grab the babies and then they didn't attack me, so it was much easier to get them back. I ended up with 6 polar bears in total, so that was more than enough. And now, with all the animals in their pens, I want to do something with this kind of mountain area. And I think this is where I'm going to build the aquarium and have a big octopus on top. So I've got a bit of a cool idea for this one, so let's grab a few supplies and get to work. So the first thing I had to do was make some room for building. So I dug away a huge section of the mountain, which would make room for building the aquarium. While I was digging away the mountain, I decided to continue and make some room for a few more enclosures to the side of the aquarium. These would later be used to house the llamas, goats and the horses. With the area cleared, I started working on building the aquarium. I tried to keep the design fairly simple, as the main focus was going to be on the octopus that was going to sit on top. For the main building, I used oxidized copper, smooth quartz and warped planks, which I gotta say worked very nice together. Next up was building the actual octopus, which wasn't easy, so I did practice a few times in a creative world first, which certainly made it much easier. I used a combination of orange terracotta and acacia planks to give the design a bit of texture. I also used some glowstone for the eyes, which I covered with dark oak trapdoors. Now I did only build him with 6 tentacles, but my thoughts were the other 2 would be sticking back into the mountain behind him. At this point I was kind of getting a little carried away with my building, so I continued working along and added in some more of the enclosures for the llamas, goats and horses. I kept these enclosures nicely decorated and made sure to place glass over the top of the goat enclosure, as those guys can jump 10 blocks high, so this would stop them from escaping. Once that was all done, I went ahead and added some custom trees on the cliff edge near the entrance, and then decorated it with a bunch of bamboo just to finish the area. Wow, just look at this place now. I mean, it looks amazing, even if I do say so myself. Now that being said, this has taken me several weeks of work, but I must admit it has totally been worth the work. But we are still far from done. So let's finally move our horses into their new enclosure. Look at that, looks like they've settled in already. However, I do still need to get some goats and llamas. Plus, we have all the aquarium to finish as well. So I headed off to some nearby snow mountains and found some goats, which were pretty easy to transport back to the enclosure. I then went out to look for some llamas, and that's where the nightmare began. You see, I thought llamas spawned in savanna biomes. So I searched, and I searched, and I searched for 2 real-life days, traveling thousands of blocks and going through countless rockets. And finally I got a bit fed up, and I decided to take a bit of time out, so I went ahead and built a nice little garden area next to the entrance. I used azalea and moss to section off the garden with some nice hedges. I then made a simple pathway and then added some decorative table using scaffolding, which finished off with some flowers and a couple of small conifer style trees. And overall, I think it shaped up pretty good. Now, at this point, I decided that I would have another attempt at finding some llamas. And after doing a bit of research, I found out that on Java Edition, the llamas only spawn in savanna plateaus and windswept hill biomes. And after finally finding a savanna plateau, my luck had changed. However, it did take me several hours to get them back to base, and I cannot tell you how happy I was when I finally got them in their enclosure. Now, with that being said, everything on the outside at this point was looking beautiful, so it's now time to start working on the inside of the aquarium. First, I repaired my tools and then worked on gathering a few more materials. This included quartz, glowstone, sand, which I smelted into glass, some more oxidized copper, moss, and a bunch of corals. With the materials all gathered, I decided to start making a plan for the layout inside the aquarium. I then jumped straight in and covered the ceiling with cut copper, and then finished the layout for the walls, dividing up all of the enclosures. It was looking a little bit dark, so I used glowstone in the ceiling for some lighting, and then continued to extend the brick path all the way through the aquarium. At this point, this was about 4 weeks into building, so I was kind of getting really eager to get this project finished. I started with the squid enclosure, as that was fairly simple. I used a combination of dirt textures for the base, and then added some glass and filled in the tank of water. I used some sea pickles at the bottom for a bit of lighting, and then added some kelp and seagrass for details. Once that was in place, I started laying down some sand in the dolphin and fish enclosures. I used glowstone around the edge for a bit of lighting, and then placed it in the glass, and then used water buckets to fill up the enclosure. I moved on to corals, where I made some interesting shapes and just tried to make the enclosure nice, colourful and bright, which I think it turned out really well. Next up was the turtle enclosure, where I made a sort of pond area with 2 little beach islands. I added in some jungle trees, some leaves, and then sectioned it off with some glass panes. It was simple, but it worked perfect for what I had in mind. I had a similar idea in mind for the frog enclosure, starting off by building up an island of mud, and then added in some water, a few trees, and then decorating it with some lily pads, drip leaf, and azalea. For the axolotls, I made an island with clay and moss, and then used mossy cobblestone and glowberries with a few leaves just to try and make it feel a bit more like a lush cave. Next, I moved on to the strider, as the strider is still a passive mob. I made it look a bit like the Nether, with a kind of warped forest biome on one side and almost like a mini Soul Valley on the other side, separated with a bit of lava through the middle. I then went ahead and just added in a few details using some magma, fungus, twisting and hanging vines. Okay, so things are really starting to shape up, but before I show you too much, we need to get a few more mobs. So let's dig a hole down and out here, which should lead us to the ocean. I mean, this will probably be the easiest way to transport the dolphins and the squids to their enclosure. Now, if we just fill this with water, we should be able to bring the dolphins and the squids through here without too much trouble. Now, with the ocean so close to the zoo, I am sure that I have seen dolphins around here. Aha, there we go. Can I put you on a lead though? Aha, I can. Cool. And if we just bring him through here, and I should just be able to pull him up here. Yes, and we have dolphin number 1. Excellent. Let's call him Dolph, like Dolph Lundgren. Okay, let's find some more. So it did take me a little while, but I found 3 more, so hopefully we can get them back safely. Look at that, perfect. Let's remove these and put the glass there to finish off the enclosure. Excellent. Transporting the squids was much tougher than the dolphins, so it did take me a lot longer to bring them back. However, finding and transporting the glow squids was even tougher. Luckily, there was a lush cave deep below the zoo, so I kind of found a good spawning spot, but it did take me a few attempts to get them back, and the stupid drowns did not make it any easier. Finally, after some trial and error, I did manage to bring back 2 glow squids, so I decided that I'd come back to the other 2 a little bit later on, as this has kind of been taking me a lot longer than I'd hoped. With the squids all in place, I removed the trapdoors and the enclosure was complete. I then moved on to searching for some frogs, which I found a small mangrove swamp where I found just 1 orange frog. But it didn't take me too long to transport him back home to the enclosure. So I headed off back out in search of a larger biome where I found another orange frog and many white frogs. So I transported them home and hoped that we might be lucky when we breed them and get the 3rd and final green frog variant. The tadpoles took a while to change, but it did turn out that the enclosure was partly in a grove biome, which luckily gave me some green frogs, meaning that we now have all 3 variants in the enclosure. Next up, it was turtle time. I thought rather than bringing back the turtles, it was probably easier just to get some eggs. And it turned out that getting the eggs was actually really easy, just by simply feeding the turtles some seagrass and just waiting for them to lay some eggs. So the breeding was actually pretty quick. However, hatching is certainly not fast. I mean, I waited and yeah, it just turns out these guys take way longer than I'd thought. So while I was still waiting for them to hatch, I went to the nether to get the next mob. First, I'm gonna need a few of these. And the striders are not the easiest mob to transport, as they're pretty slow when they're not in lava. But if I can get at least 2 of them back, then I can breed them. Let's quickly make a fishing rod. And now if we add some warp fungus, I think that's what these guys like. Oh yes, perfect. Let's also grab this guy. And now I have 2, but it's pretty slow moving them. Finally, back at base, and I now have 2 of them in boats. So let's do this one at a time. Okay, we're almost there now. That's 1. And finally, that's 2. Quick, hop in the lava and warm up. Now, let's try breeding them. Look at the baby, he looks so derpy. Okay, well they seem pretty happy, so let's now work on the fish tanks. For these guys, I can actually rename them while they're in the bucket, so I'll name them one by one by the type of fish they are, as they're all different. That's the tropical fish all done. Now I just need some salmon and cod, which should be easy enough. There we go, that's all the tropical fish, salmon and cod all in one tank. The puffer fish will be in a separate tank as they tend to kill the other water mobs. So you guys can go in here. And that's another one done. My gosh, the turtle eggs still haven't hatched yet. So on to the last one I guess, which is the axolotl. And I'm going to call these guys Axel. Let's place them down here. And I think we can breed these with a tropical fish. There we go, we got a little yellow one. Let's also breed these 2. Which gives us... did we get one? Oh yeah, look, there's another little one. Wow, and the strider grew up already, so let's quickly breed them one more time. And there we go, that is how I built the most insane zoo and aquarium in Minecraft Hardcore, complete with every passive mob, and I don't think I missed any, or did I? I guess all I need to do now is just wait for the turtles to hatch. Come on! I'm closing in on 2,000 days in Minecraft Hardcore, which is probably the longest I've ever spent in a single survival world. However, despite all the days I spent building and gathering resources, I have still not finished the cave transformation that I started in episode 1. Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. I mean, it all started off so well, and this side of the cave actually looks pretty good. This side, on the other hand, not so much. But today, that's going to change as I'm going to transform this cave into something epic. That means adding a bunch of new farms, including sugarcane, cactus, honey, honeycomb, and pumpkins. Plus, I will be adding an interior to the iron farm room. I mean, seriously, it just looks a mess right now. And of course, that means a bunch of new buildings inside the cave, including a villager trading hall that will use a zombie curing system to get cheap trades. And if you guys know me, then you know that we'll be finishing it off with some epic details. So why not subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content? It's free and you can always unsubscribe later on if you wish. Now, before we get to work, I have something to show you. It took me nearly 2 hours of waiting, but it finally happened. Yes, they finally hatched after waiting so long after building the zoo in last episode, so we finally have some turtles. But it turns out I did miss a few, so I will be adding the brown mushrooms, the arctic foxes, the bats, and of course the new mobs from 1.20. But right now I have so much work to do, and first I need some redstone. Well, that won't do. Let's hope there's some at the raid farm. Well, not as much as I'd hoped. I guess that means I'm gonna have to go Okay, that's not bad for an hour's mining, but I'm also going to need some quartz for the observers. So let's take a quick trip to the Nether. And I guess I should probably use some of that XP to repair my pickaxe. And that should just about do it. Why do all my builds lead to digging holes? Oh well, here goes nothing. After 2 hours of digging and repairing my tools, I think we finally have enough space for the first 2 farms. I think maybe I'll have the sugarcane farm on each side and maybe the cactus at the end. I mean, I don't use much cactus anyway, so I guess it only needs to be a small farm. Plus these farms are pretty much lossless, so we shouldn't lose any drops, and the farms are super simple to build. But first I need to connect a hopper line into the farm storage so that we can automatically sort all the drops. The sugarcane drops can go into these chests, and the cactus can go over here. Perfect. Okay, time to get these farms in place. The farms are all in place now, and to get more drops I've doubled them up by stacking one behind the other on each side. And it looks like we're already getting drops, so at least I know they're working. Which means we can now work on a design for the ceiling. And I think I'll just continue with the spruce logs design so that the theme flows nicely throughout the farming area. Oh yeah, that's looking pretty awesome, and now I don't have to keep farming the stupid sugarcane so that I can craft rockets. Now I want to do something with the area by the iron farm. Man, this room really does need some work. So let's get straight to it. First, let's rearrange some of these walls and open up the room a little bit. And now I should probably add in a ceiling, as it kind of looks a bit of a mess right now. Okay, that hides all the stones, so now let's add some details and turn this into an actual room. I think we'll start with a couple of tables at each side. I'll place in a few flower pots and add some poppies in memory of the iron golems. I can't decide which way to do the carpet. No, that don't look right. Maybe I'll just go with some moss carpet instead. Yeah, that works. Now it just needs a few leaves and maybe some hanging flowers. And to make the farm look a little bit nicer, I think I'm going to switch out the walls for some red terracotta. Considering how simple this design is, I actually really like it. And it certainly does the job. And the red terracotta really does add a nice warmth to the room. Now with that all in place, we can finally start working on the actual cave. But first, I'm going to need some bees. But I think I used most of them over here in the zoo, so I guess I should round up a few more. Well, I still have a few left over, but still not enough, so I'm definitely going to need some more. There's one. Let's grab some extra bees while we're here too. Where is he going? Ooh, was that another nest? Yes, that's 2 bees and 2 nests. So I just need a few more. Check this out, I found so many. The flower forest is actually a really good place to find them. I mean, that only took me like 15 minutes. Anyway, let's head home as I'm getting a little hungry. Let's grab some emeralds and buy some more golden carrots, as next up I have a pretty big job to tackle. And yet again, my projects lead to more digging. Seriously, like, why do I do this to myself? Okay, one more time. Let's do this. So that took me a lot longer than I expected, but I did do a little bit of terraforming to make the area look much nicer and a bit more interesting. Plus I done a fair bit of texturing to the walls. So I think I'm ready to build the honey and honeycomb farm, which I think I'm going to build in here. But first I need my redstone boxes, and yes, I finally dyed them red, which should make finding things a little bit easier. Now the farm's going to go over in this corner just here, and these areas will be covered with glass to make a kind of dome shape. But first, let's get all the redstone in place. All that's needed now is the minecart chests, and that's pretty much most of it done. Now before I add the bee's nest, I just need a couple of things. First I need some glass, and we should have a fair amount of cactus now. Yep, that's plenty. And maybe a bit more sand. And throw those in the smelter. I just hope the green glass looks okay. Now the only thing I need is flowers, and lots of them. And that should just about do it. Okay, let's try adding the green glass and see how it looks. Actually, that's not bad. Yeah, I like that. And I think it'll look even better once we get in some more of the details. So now I just need to go ahead and place in the flowers. Yes, I actually really like that a lot. Now to finish it off, I just need to add the bees nests and fill the dispensers with glass bottles and shears. That way we can collect both honey and honeycomb. Okay, that is no way near enough bottles. Man, I'm gonna need a lot more glass, which means I need tons of sand. Okay, let's just hope that makes enough. Jeez, that took so much more glass than I expected. But everything is in place now, including the shears. And in case they run out, we can top them up by using these minecart chests here. So all I have to do now is finally add the bees nests. You know what? That is looking pretty awesome. So it's time to leave the farm to do its thing while I go and do mine, I guess. Let's get building. So, there's still a lot of work to do, but already I think this build adds so much to the cave and the change of roof colour really does brighten things up. Now I still have a lot of texturing to do and maybe I'll add some overgrown vines hanging from the ceiling, but it's probably easier if we get the buildings all in place first. But I will need a few materials first, so let's quickly head over to the mob farm. Awesome, we still have plenty of bones. And while we're here, let's quickly repair our tools. And now I should be able to make tons of moss and harvest it with my awesome hoe. I have no idea if that's enough, but almost a double chest worth should keep me going for a while. I definitely need a moss farm at some point, but I'll get to that at another time. For now, the only thing I need is amethyst and calcite. And luckily, I stumbled across a couple of geodes while I was mining. So... Okay, that should just about do it for now. I will be using the amethyst and moss in a little while, but first I want to make a start on the pumpkin farm, which is going to sit somewhere around here. So it's probably best to start with the actual building, then we can design the farm to fit inside. So let's work some magic. Well, that took me longer than expected, and texturing is so tough, especially the ceiling, but it is slowly coming together. And the barn itself turned out great. It probably still needs a few details, but overall I think I'm pretty happy with it. Next up is time to get the farm in place, and I've already made some space so it should fit in nicely. So first, let's make a water stream down to the storage area so that we can filter the items into the last spot. Now the items can drop off here and go straight into the storage system. And let's add the pumpkins to the item filter before I forget. Now let's just make a little space here, and we can place some hopper lines so that we can collect 100% of the drops. The item should go into here and then pop out the dropper into the stream, which flows straight into the storage system. And for the actual farm, I'm using mud as it works much like a slab. This means that the hoppers underneath will pick up every drop. Now I just need to do a little redstone magic. place in some pumpkin seeds, and then cover it all up with some glass. Now the farm is all in place and looking pretty awesome, so I can just leave it here to do its thing. But before I call this one done, I need to add a stairway and maybe some kind of storage room upstairs. Okay, I think this one has turned out really cool. The farms down here look awesome and it all seems to be working. Then upstairs we have a kind of storage area, just for detail really, but I think it looks pretty cool. Now I just need to tidy up a few of these glowberry vines with some shears and maybe a little bone meal for the extra lighting. Oh yeah, that looks so much better now. Now I just need to finish off this corner to complete this side of the cave. Then I can start working on this corner over here, as we still have the villager trading hall to build, which means moving all the villagers. Yeah, like that's going to be a lot of fun. So, I guess we shouldn't waste any time. Okay, that was tough, I'm not gonna lie, but that's a lot of work done now, and I'd say we're about 1/3 of the way done with the texturing, so it's getting there. And now this side is looking pretty awesome, although I still need to do an interior. So let me know in the comments if you guys have any ideas of what we could use this build for. I mean, it's only small so we can't do much, but at least it finishes off this corner. And next up it's time for the trading hall, and I was thinking maybe some stripped crimson stem would look pretty cool. Or maybe not. Oh well, I guess that means a quick trip to the Nether. That should be plenty. It's not loads, but it should be enough. And finally, we can start on the villager trading hall. Now I've already made some markings to help me with the layout, so it should fit nicely into this corner. The spruce planks are where the zombies will go, and the villagers will be standing on pistons placed in these holes. But let's get the floor in place first. Now the floor's in place, I just have a little bit of redstone to do, which is super simple. So for each villager, I simply place a sticky piston, a trapdoor, redstone dust, and a lever. See? Easy peasy. See? Open close. Haha, it works. Okay, so let's do the rest. Oh yeah, and don't forget to isolate the redstone. Now I need to build up these sections so that we can trap both the villagers and the zombies. So let's get back to work. Okay, that's looking good. And now for the easy part, getting the villagers in place. And yes, that was a joke. So first I need some lecterns, which means loads of bookshelves. And luckily, I raided some ages ago from one of the dungeons. So I kind of have a few spare, but 1 stack should be more than enough. Now, let's get those villagers. Okay, we have villager number 1. Wait, where are you going? Ooh, someone's eager. Nice, let's keep moving, buddy. Like, where the hell did you come from? There must be a dark spot somewhere. And we have our first villager. Excellent. And still loads more to go. So let's place down some more lecterns and repeat, I guess. And we have a villager with no trade. You're going to give me trouble, aren't you? Come on, get off my stairs. Ah, yes, go back in your hole, you stupid hobbit. Sorry, I mean nitwit. You know what, I don't even know anymore. Okay, that's the 2 farmers in. Sorry buddy, we only have full-time positions, so you're going nowhere. And which spot are you going to choose? Ah, good choice, my friend. Okay, that looks like we've got all of the main villagers with trades in place. But we have a few new villagers, so I'm going to leave them to grow up and then we can get some good trades before I move them. Now we just need to get some zombies. Let's just grab some name tags. And of course it has to be Dave. Sorry if your name's Dave. Let's dig down here because I'm pretty sure there's a cave. Aha, perfect. And we already have some volunteers. Okay, like we don't need that many. Seriously, the rest of you are just in the way, so please sod off. Okay, that's 1 trapped. So let's put a name tag on you. And now we just have 3 more to trap. That's 2, 3, and 4. Now I should be able to release them down to the chambers just below the villagers. Excellent, that's them all in place now, so we just need to test if it actually works. First, I need a fermented spider eye. Why is that not working? Okay, I'm a noob, I needed brown mushrooms. Let's fill these with water. And the blaze powder is in, so now I can add the fermented spider eye. And gunpowder should make it a splash potion of weakness. Okay. Now, let's drop this villager down and get the zombies' attention. Now, if we stand back... Okay, I think it's working. Yes, let's bring him up. Okay, dude, you're a zombie, so have this. Okay, I feel bad, so here, have a golden apple. It'll make you feel better. And achievement unlocked. Excellent. So now we know it's working, although you are still well overpriced, dude. Still, we can work on that later, as right now I need to put a roof and a building over this thing. So let's get to work. Gosh, this cave is looking so cool now, and I'm loving the crimson wood for the trading hall. It's not a block I would usually use, but it actually works great for this build. Plus, it adds a nice change in colour. Next, I think it's time to get back to some detailing, as I still have a lot of work to finish up, including another house, an amethyst geode, and lots of detail. So, let's get this place finished. The first thing I wanted to do was add 1 more building to the slope leading up to the nether portal. So I made some changes to the walkway and started planning out the layout for the build. It was a little bit awkward building the house into the slope, but I felt like it was a great spot for the final building inside the cave. I used packed mud and mud bricks to keep with the theme, and then went ahead and used spruce for the roof so that it would naturally blend with the cliff. Once the house was complete, I decided to try and add a bit more colour to the cave by adding a custom amethyst geode. I built this into the wall and then spent several hours going around the cave, texturing the walls and trying to make it blend with everything else to make it feel a bit more natural. Once that was all in place, I went around the rest of the cave, texturing the walls and the ceiling, which really added so much more detail and really finished off the cave. I also added in a bunch of glowberries and another custom mushroom over in the corner next to my starter house. Inside the mushroom, I made a small work area to make it feel a little bit like a kind of market stall or a small shop. I then finished up the cave with some cool hanging lanterns using shroom lights and mangrove wood. And then for a little extra detail, I added in some custom hanging vines and switched most of the grass blocks for moss as I preferred the vibrant green. And finally I decided to change up a couple of the roofs for mangrove wood to add that little bit of extra colour. And finally, after several weeks of work, I think this cave is finally looking pretty awesome and feeling much more like it belongs in this world. Plus, all the new farms will certainly come in handy for my future plans. The only question left is, what should I build next? A castle? A village? Or maybe you have a better idea? Let me know in the comments and I'll catch you in the next one.